into God. Problem is, we don't know exactly how to do it, and we don't know exactly what it is. A lot of us, I think, would say. Hollywood has a version. Your family growing up had a version. You right now are living a version, and I find that a lot of us are just more confused than anything. So begins the series, The Face of Love. And we're going to take some honest looks and some funny looks and very serious looks at what love is and what love isn't. And at the end of this 4 or 5 weeks, I believe we're going to come out of this looking more like the character of God, a God who forgives, and a God who's patient, and a God who gives second chances, the God who says, I just want to help pick up the pieces. That's the kind of church we want to be. We don't want to be a perfect church. That's what the Pharisees were in Jesus' day. The people who looked like they had it all together. We just want to be the people who depend on the one who can help us be what we can't be on our own. And that's who Jesus came for. Messy people. And so if you can relate to life being confusing at times, to life being messy, maybe carrying some bad choices or regrets, this is a church for you, and I hope you make this whole if you're new or visiting us. At the end of the day, this crazy little thing called love actually turns out to be a significant part of what we not only were to experience, but what we were made to be. And we're going to start, of all places, if you're familiar with Scripture, with the Bible, we're going to start here on Easter Sunday. And I'll be honest, I wrestled with this a couple weeks ago. I was just sort of pacing like, am I crazy to talk out of Genesis on Easter Sunday? But too late now, so here I go. One of the most difficult passages of the Bible. For the longest time, this was a tough one for me, and I think it is for many of us here. And if this story is new to you this morning, it might leave your jaw hanging open. This God of love, this God of patience, this God who would send his son, this great, great God of love, something messed up is happening here in the first book of the Bible. And so we're going to start there, and we're going to end up on what this day is about. Abraham was the man early in the Old Testament who was the one guy who saw Yahweh for who he was. He saw the living God. He realized that the living God, Yahweh, was in fact the one God, the one true God. And so God just recognized him and built him up and said, Abraham, then you're going to be my guy. God wasn't playing favorites. He was recognizing this is a man of faith. And so through this man, I'm going to restore the world. We were intended to be the image of God, the face of God, the glory, the greatness of God. We deviated. The Bible calls that sin. We went down our own path. It left us fragmented and broken as the image of God. We still see glimpses of it. It's not that whole, complete picture of God that we were supposed to be. So God puts a plan in motion to restore us, to restore man. And he says, Abraham, thank you for seeing me for who I am. Now, through you, through your line, your ancestry line, I'm going to bless the world, and I'm going to reach every nation and every people with the opportunity of being reconnected back to me, to be filled again with my greatness, my glory. So that's his promise, and it's going to happen immediately. The first step of this line is his son Isaac, Abraham's son Isaac. Sometime later, God said to Abraham, God said to him, Abraham, here I am, Abraham said in response. Then God said, take this son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain that I will show you. God has done a series of remarkable, miraculous events to bless Abraham and Sarah because of their faith. And he said, the blessing to the whole world that's coming is going to come through your line, and it's going to begin with Isaac, through Isaac's descendants. And of course, God is really speaking of the Messiah who would come, Jesus. Well, now, Abraham wakes up one day and God says, Abraham, take this son, this same son, Isaac, I want you to sacrifice him. And that's a whole other story why animal sacrifices happen in the Old Testament. But in this case, he's asking him to sacrifice his son. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, at least 2 or 3 servants had traveled with him these 3 days. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. So this is where some of my confusion was in the early years of my faith, reading this story. Well, wait a minute. Abraham is obeying God. He's going to sacrifice, and we see by the end of it, he really was. He really was going to obey God and sacrifice Isaac. But at the same time, he's telling the servants, we're going to go worship at this place of sacrifice. We guess they hear, we, plural, will come back to you. And so it's as if Abraham is at the same, simultaneously believing God's promise that Isaac is the beginning of the blessing to the world. From Isaac will come the Messiah. And yet, God is asking to sacrifice him, so I'm going to do that also. At this point, I think a lot of people, maybe outside the church, who are not familiar with the story, say, see, this is it. This is the deal with religion. This is wacky. This is messed up. This is messed up. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Dad? I mean, at the risk of making this a little humorous here, yes, my son, Abraham replied. I see the fire and the wood here, Isaac said, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? Good question. Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. Again, it seems that Abraham's now speaking of knowing this is the son of promise. From this son will come the blessing to the whole world. And so God will provide the lamb, my son. When they reached the place God had told him about in Moriah, the mountain of Moriah, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him in this language, the angel of the Lord, that's an Old Testament Hebrew use of wording that a lot of Bible scholars believe refers to the Messiah himself. That second person of the Trinity, Jesus. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, not fear being afraid of, but fear meaning deeply revere, deeply respect. Now I know that you revere God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looks up in the thicket, and there's a ram caught in the thicket, and so the sacrifice of worship ends up being this innocent ram and not his son Isaac. Wow, so happy Easter. I mean, it ends good, but a stressful few days there before the great happy ending. What's God doing? Well, what's happening here is something that, again, Hebrew scholars point out, and for the longest time I did not see this, and it was just amazing. And in the office, just a few weeks ago in our church office, we were talking this out, and actually there was a lot of emotion talking this out.